Hello everybody. In this video we're going to take a look at how we can draw a more complicated shape using Nurbs curves. And for this demonstration I will be creating an image plane of a French curve. As you can see, this is a complicated form with nice sweeping curves as well as some sharper angles, which will create a nice little challenge. I'm just going to pull the image plane back a little bit, bring down the alpha gain, and tell it to look through camera because I only need to see it in the front viewport. And while I'm at it, I will put it onto a layer so that I can quickly hide and unhide it, as well as make it so that I cannot select it. Okay, now that I have my image plane of a French curve, let's see how we can draw this shape here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another tool that I haven't yet demonstrated. Uh, and we'll take a look at that. It's here under Create, Curve Tools, Pencil Tool. This will also create a Nurbs curve. The way that you use it is simply use your mouse to draw the form. I'm using my mouse and holding down the left mouse button. As you can see, it's a little bit hard to describe this shape perfectly using this tool. And there it is. Now, as you can see, it looks a little bit rough. In addition, this will be a little bit difficult to work with, and let me show you why. I'm going to right-click on it so that we can look at its components. We can look at its edit points, and as you can see, there are a lot of them. We can also look at the control vertices. And as you can see, there are a lot of those as well. In fact, this would be very difficult to work with because there's just so many points here to have to adjust. We'll return back to this one a little bit later. I'm just going to move it out of the way and I'll show you my preferred method. Okay, so the way that I would prefer to draw this French curve shape would be by going to Create, Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool. I'm going to open up its tool settings just to make sure that they're set as I want them to be. This is the setting I want, 3 cubic. That is what will give us nice smooth curves. And now I'll start drawing out my, my shape here, trying to use as few points as possible. In this case, less is more. It makes it easier to actually describe the form well, rather than that previous example where we had too many control vertices. I'm going to start drawing here, and I'll just put a point here, 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 and so on. Notice that I'm not all that concerned with the fact that I'm not really describing the shape very well yet. I'm right now just trying to put enough points in here that I'll have something to work with. And I think I'll stop there and press enter, and this is what I have. Now if we take a look at my Nurbs curve here, you can see that it's going to take quite a bit of adjustment to actually get it to describe this shape here. You will also notice that I've left this gap here from where I began the curve and where I ended the curve. This is a unclosed Nurbs curve. I'm going to close it. And to do so, I'll have my curve selected. I'll go to Curves, and I will find the Open Close tool here. I'm going to open up the settings for this tool. You'll notice that you have 3 different options here. You can play around with those different options and see what gives you the best result. I'm going to choose Ignore for shape and Apply. And now you will see that I have this enclosed shape now. Now I can go into my components. I'll choose Control Vertex, and I can start adjusting them to better describe this form, this shape, rather. One other thing to take note of is that if I press 3 on my keyboard, you might have noticed it'll show the shape a little smoother. 1 and 3. Sometimes it can get a little confusing in here to know which one of these control vertices is affecting what, in which case it's easy to use your arrow keys to cycle through the different points. So this is looking a lot better. Here's what I have so far. These big sweeping curves are, I think, described quite well. Some of the areas perhaps that are a little problematic would be where I have these sharper curves. And to fix that, what I will do is I will add more edit points to my curve. There are a couple different ways that I can add more edit points. One way is to right-click on the object, the curve in this case, and select Curve Point. This is another component of Nurbs curves. The curve point can be located anywhere on the curve. I'm middle mouse dragging on it, and wherever I decide to put an edit point, I'll just simply release the middle mouse button and then go to Curves, Insert Knot, open up its tool settings, and I will make sure that I have it set to at selection. That will put a knot or edit point right at the position I have selected. So if I apply, and then we take a look at the edit points, you will see that in fact there is now a new edit point right where I told it to create one. Now that I have a little bit more to work with, I perhaps will be able to better describe this shape here. And I think that's looking pretty good. Another way that I can add more geometry in my Nurbs curve to work with is to select edit points, and perhaps I need a little bit more to work with in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 2 edit points. I have one here and one here. A little hard to see. There's an edit point at this spot and at this spot. With those 2 edit points selected, once again, I will go to Curves, Insert Knot, open up its tool settings, and this time instead of at selection, I'm going to change it to between selections, and then apply. And this will put a new edit point exactly in between the 2 that I had selected. Now, once again, I'll have a little bit more geometry to work with so that I can describe that tighter angle a little bit better. As you can see, there are a couple other areas I might need to work on. I will simply use the same techniques that I just showed you, the 2 techniques of inserting a edit point in between selections, or by selecting an exact point on the curve. Remember, you can select edit points, select 2, between selections, add. That'll add a little bit more that I can work with. Even though I'm adding edit points, notice that when I'm actually adjusting the curve, I'm using control vertices. I find that a little bit easier to work with. And that's looking pretty good. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. Let's hide the image plane temporarily so that you can see what I have here. So the key takeaway from that is that when I drew out this French curve using the CV curve tool, I was able to get a better result. I was using less edit points, fewer control vertices, but then that allowed me to get smoother curves. The pencil curve tool, on the other hand, gave me this very rough look. While I have way more control vertices to work with, it actually makes it more difficult to describe the form that I want to describe. But this brings up a perfect opportunity to show you how we can actually use this really messy looking French curve and make it look more like this one. I'm going to go back to object mode, and we're going to compare these 2 Nurbs curves. I'm going to select the one that I use the control vertex tool with and open up the attribute editor. And what I want you to notice is that it has 28 spans at 3 degrees. This one, on the other hand, has 125 spans at 3 degrees. Now, what we can do is we can simplify this curve here. Remember, this one is 28, this one is 125 spans. What I'm going to do is, with this messy one selected, I'm going to go to Curves, Rebuild, and open up its tool settings. I'll reset the tool so we can take a look at this. And what you'll notice is that we can rebuild this curve, and we can set it to have however many spans we want. The default is 4. Let's see what happens if I apply this to it. Well, I don't think that's enough. That's not enough spans to describe that form, so I'm going to undo that. We could try a larger number like 12. Perhaps that's not enough either. If I remember correctly, this one's 28. Let's try 28. And that gives us something a little bit easier to work with. Once again, we'll take a look at my image plane. I'm going to move this one out of the way, and I'll move this one back on top of my image plane. And now the process of making this one look better is going to be simply the same as I did with this one. So I'm not going to talk so much through it. I'm going to just do it, and we'll see how it comes out. And as you can see, we can get a good result using that method as well. Still, given the choice, I think that I prefer using the CV curve tool to create the form. This is a very valuable exercise to try to do, to try to describe the form of a French curve with Nurbs curves in Maya. The reason why it's so useful is because we have so many different types of curves here. We've got some very wide sweeping curves, some tighter curves, some sharper angles here. If you can describe this form using Nurbs curves, you're going to be able to draw just about anything you might need to draw using Nurbs curves. I hope this video was useful for you, and I'll see you next time.